Hello, friends. Looks like we're live. Hello, how are you? So glad you're here. So glad to get to have this conversation with literally anybody who wants to be a part of it. We have a Taurus full moon total lunar eclipse coming up November 8th. This is huge energy that we are likely already feeling a good big chunk of. And we will continue to see this build until November 8th, where we have a culmination of sorts. And even then, it's still likely that the changes and implications of what's coming up on November 8th are going to play out for at least 6 months, if not way longer. It's like when we have full moons, they're always a time of manifestation and culmination. But when we have an eclipse, meaning the full moon is happening in a sign where the nodal axis is, so like the north node's in Taurus, the south node's in Scorpio, and actually the full moon in Taurus is right in between the north node in Taurus and Uranus. And that little chunk of energy is a supercharged full moon because the north node is involved. And so, because this is an eclipse, it's more than just a new beginning or a manifestation of some sort. It's bringing with it something that's going to unfold as a whole chapter in your life. It's not just like going to play out for 6 months. Maybe that's how long it takes to get it started and situated, but it's a chapter opening. It's like a whole new book, maybe. Um, so there are it just feels like gigantic tidal waves of energy moving through mass consciousness. Um, Kind of like I said, almost already now, with the new moon solar eclipse in Scorpio that we just had on the 25th. Would love to hear from you. How was that? How did it feel for you? Um, and now coming up on November 8th, we have the full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus. So we have, oh, like I have a sense of the feeling of this energy that I want to do my best to convey is in full as I possibly can. And so I'm going to do the Taurus thing as best I can and relax into it, relax into the pieces unfolding themselves in the order that they will, and just trust that well being is dominant. So there's no rush. There's literally no rush in this conversation. We have the time and space. I know I do. And if, hopefully you do too, you can carve that out for this conversation because I genuinely feel another Taurus concept that this conversation is very valuable. There, there are so many things within that tidal wave that are going to be washing through our experience, a lot coming up. We have a lot of Scorpio energy at this full moon. There's not just the sun, but also kind of on either side, we have Mercury and Venus and the South Node. So there's a ton of Scorpio energy, like plumbing the depths of bringing up all kinds of things from our unconscious minds that maybe we didn't realize were in there because it's unconscious. And that's okay. That'll be like par for the course if we have lots of old emotional things kind of coming to the surface. And as we do, the manifestation, the culmination that's happening is on the Taurus end, where that is essentially our ability to ground within ourselves, to nourish ourselves, our physical vessel. Can you sustain your life or not? And that's about as complex as it gets. It's like when you're tired, go to sleep. When you're hungry, eat some food. That's Taurus. It's very simple. It's a very simple place in our energy where our well-being is simple. And at the same time, the balancing end is Scorpio, which contains the full range of human experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And sometimes the ugly is so ugly that we cannot stand to look at it, and it gets shoved into our unconscious mind where we don't have to look at it. And that's a process called denial, where that's essentially a coping mechanism for something that you're not ready to process. You don't have the skills to be able to process the thing that you weren't able to look at. And there's no shame in that because learning skills is kind of what we came here for, to the earth school. So, yeah, as we go, there are things that are too much for us in the moment that get put into our unconscious mind for later when it's not too much. And that whole process is, I think, part of the divine timing and the well being that is dominant. That's like stuff doesn't come back up to our surface until we have like the Taurus end capacity to be able to ground ourselves through whatever situation might come our way. And so essentially the manifestation, what we're going to see is in our capacity to ground ourselves into well-being. And I that sounds really nice and it's gonna be. It's a very peaceful energy that is this like this pocket of energy that is going to open up as far as like not even just on the full moon, but as a portal for possibly the whole next chapter of your life. And within this space, there is nothing except for knowing all is well. All is exactly how it needs to be. When I am hungry, I feed myself. When I'm tired, I put myself to sleep. That all is well. The sun came up today. I'm breathing my oxygen. I have water to drink. All is well. And that there is that simple well being available to us. And outside the bubble, outside of that Taurus well being, knowing that all is well bubble, will be, let's call it static. All the all the beliefs and all the thoughts and all the perceptions that aren't that. So the fear, the wanting to stir up the dust of contrast for whatever reason, like there's always people doing that. That's another reason we came to the earth school, is to get clarity, and we can't have clarity if there is no contrast. So there's a lot out there, a lot of diverse points of view that we can look at and react to. And I think on this Taurus full moon lunar eclipse, we're going to get to see one, like, kind of just how painful it can be to focus on the static, to focus on all the things out in the world. And, like, kind of with all this Scorpio energy that we have right now, the sun, the Mercury and Venus, like our eyes are wide open to the harsh truths of reality. We're like wide open for it. And so as you look around the world, it's going to be more painful than ever, is my expectation. And in the midst of all of that pain of seeing this harsh, real reality, whatever your version of that is, it's like you don't have to stay there. You have the capacity. We're building it day by day, each and every one of us, to breathe through hard things, to feel energy that is maybe less than ideal, maybe not your favorite place to be, like having to face harsh truths and where, yeah, it may not be what you wish it was, but at least you're looking at the truth. And then from there, you get to decide, what do you want to have in your reality? Do you want this true thing that you're focused on? Or do you want well being? Because well being is always available to us, it's within every single breath that we take. If we will let go of every other thought and just focus on our breath, we have well being in an instant. And so it's a matter of like, I think the culmination, like the what are we manifesting? You know, manifesting sounds like you're gonna have a new car in your garage or like something like that. I don't really think it works like that. I think it's more like we're manifesting experiences, we're manifesting new perspectives. And I think what we're gonna get to see is just how capable we are at grounding our energy. I think we're gonna have it like kind of put to the max as far as the discomfort of being outside of ourselves. And in that discomfort, you'll pull every ounce of your personal energy that you can back inside of yourself where there's nothing but well being. I think this is like that. that North Node in Taurus, 18-month transit of our collective fate, our collective destiny unfolding, like this next chapter of why are we practicing Taurus energy right now with the North Node there? Why are we leaning towards that? And it's because in the new earth, which we're going to talk a lot more about this later, but it's like in the new earth and really always all the time, well-being is dominant. And in Taurus, that's where we know that. And that is the antidote to fear. Fear is a very scorpionic realm. Just in general, like Scorpio includes the full range of human emotion. So fear and any kind of emotional distress, like that's all very scorpionic. And in Taurus, there's an ability to basically draw a line between what you can and can't control, is one way to say it. What is your business and what is not your business is another way to say it. Scorpio is where our energy merges with other people. So, like, you get all tangled up and you can really no longer even tell what's what. It's just all one big thing. And in Taurus, it's not like that. You can feel your edges. It's called your body. And so, either something that you're worried about or distressed about has to do with your own physical security in this moment, or it doesn't. And Taurus is only ever worried about what has to do with its own physical security in this moment and probably wanting that security to continue into the future. Taurus is a very stable energy. And that's a good spot to talk about, like, Taurus in general and how, like, it is a very stable energy. And I mean, when people are insulting Taurus, they call it stubborn, but it's stable. And the stability of Taurus is like Mother Earth itself, like the consistency in the Earth's rotation, providing a consistent pattern of the sun, allowing food to grow in seasons around different geographies. That consistency and stability is what grants life to be. So the fact that you can be stubborn, AKA stable, in taking care of your own physical well-being is what will allow your life to continue long into the future. So, like, Taurus is that energy that nurtures growth. It's an earth sign, it's the first of the earth signs, it's like the beginning of the earth family. When you look at like that, the triangle of the earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, and Capricorn, all they share a skill set that applies to kind of like putting your hands in the clay and like making it happen with your own physical self. And at the same time, they all three do something very different, I think, in terms of like what their role is on the team. And Capricorn is, I'm going to start at the end and work it backwards because you really can't do the other two, Virgo and Capricorn, unless you have a really solid foundation in Taurus. So, again, this is all things that are kind of coming to this culmination point during this upcoming full moon. And so, Capricorn is our there's a stubbornness in Capricorn too that says, like, I will go to the top of the mountain. And until I'm standing on the top of the mountain, I'm not going to stop. And so, Capricorn, if left to its own devices, would die while it's trying to get to the top of the mountain. Capricorn has no concept for being hungry or tired or like, what does that even mean? Like, I'm not done working yet. So that's Capricorn. So you can start to see where they balance each other. Taurus is where we realize that our body is hungry, that your gas tank is almost empty, that your energy is frazzled because you need a nap. Like, Taurus is where we take care of our vehicle so that the vehicle can actually make it to the top of the mountain. Like the idea slow and steady wins the race. That's very Taurus. Capricorn is the drive. It's the push that says, I will have what I can see in my vision. And the relationship then with Virgo is where we have the skills. Like, let's say you truly wanted to climb to the top of the mountain. There's a lot of Virgo energy that it takes to do that. You have to find all the right tools. You have to learn what the tools do. You have to gain some level of experience and technical proficiency with like tying the knots and doing the carabiner. I'm not a rock climber, obviously, but like you got to actually learn how to do it. And that's the Virgo part where do you trust your own skills to get you up the mountain, right? Capricorn says, we're going, get on board. And Virgo's like, not yet. I need another month because I haven't studied what to do if there's an ice storm yet. And I haven't done this. And Capricorn's like, I'll give you a week and then we're going. And so that's kind of that relationship where Virgo, left to its own devices, is never ready. It's never done preparing. You can prepare for the rest of time. It's called analysis paralysis, and Virgo's got it bad. And again, that's where Capricorn is the one that says, you don't get 4 weeks, you get one. And then we are going, and you will get on the bus, and we will go up to the top of the mountain, and you will figure it out as we go. And so again, Virgo is like looking into the details, that's where it's very different from Taurus, because Virgo can see the vision, like what Capricorn is looking at, can see that, but Capricorn is tunneled in on the top of the mountain. We're going, we're going to have the top of the mountain experience. So excited. That drive, that funneled vision into like being at the goal. That is Capricorn. And Virgo is like more standing off to the side, going, oh my God, that's a million miles between where we are right now and the top of the mountain, and this terrain, and this terrain, and this terrain, and this terrain, and this challenge, and this challenge. And Virgo can see it all. And then Virgo wants to like make a plan and have like tools packed and ready to like, okay, so this is this challenge, and these are my tools, and I got it all. Like, if this contingency happens, I got this going on. Virgo's got the plan figured out, and Taurus is going to make sure that your car doesn't run out of gas while you get to the top of the mountain. And you think about that, like all the planning in the world, all the vision in the world doesn't actually get you to the top of the mountain if you let your car run out of gas. Period. So that's where you can't really do the other two without a good, big, healthy dose of Taurus to take good care of what's important, what's valuable, what's worth spending your time on, what's worth spending your money on. Like, these are very Taurus questions, because Taurus is that place where well-being is dominant, and at the same time, like, we're in the earth realm, so nothing in the earth realm is infinite. Everything in the earth realm is finite. So again, like, Taurus has a very good sense of its own boundaries, its own physical needs compared to the resources that are available, has a keen sense. And that's where, again, if we don't have enough resources available, if we're hungry on a daily basis, like, Taurus can take over our life. Like, getting our own physical needs met is primary. And then we get kind of comfortable and we stop paying attention to like if our needs are truly getting met on a daily basis, or are we on some sort of autopilot where we're not truly paying attention to ourselves. We're focused outwardly, we're paying attention to other things. So this is a time where that the hunk of energy that we have happening with like Taurus and Scorpio, like the culmination, the full moon side of it in Taurus is going to show us how good we are at grounding our energy. And the things that are coming up in Scorpio, depending on the house that you have Scorpio in, it could look a little different. But for the most part, Scorpio energy plays out with at least one other person. So, like another person or a small group of people, or like your team at work or whatever, like that's where you can see your unconscious things rising to the surface. You're seeing it in the mirror of the people around you. And so I do think that there's going to be some rough waters in our relationships where we haven't been being fully authentic to ourselves. And we've been putting it off and putting it off and put it out. I'm like, "Mm, right here." And it's time to be honest. There's there's a lot about this honesty, this like authenticity that is bursting forward at our surface, where not only is the full moon on the same degree as Uranus, so the full moon is at like 16 degrees 0 minutes, and then Uranus is at like 16:56. So kind of almost 1 degree apart, but so close. And then the North Node is just right there at 13 degrees. So all just really super close together. And I see like the Taurus end winning out, the true to our simple physical needs winning out, true to our own hunger winning out. And that's going to possibly create some ripple effects in our relationships with other people. And that Uranus component in the mix, like our authentic self is not an accident. And as hard as it can be to think about being totally honest about who you really are, it's not an accident that that's how you are. And that it can be scary. Like Uranus is a pioneer. It's where we accept and fully acknowledge that there's never been a person like me. You know, not only does like societal norms not even come close to fitting, it's like they never fit anyone ever. And it's up to us each individually if we want to adopt and acknowledge our divine authenticity, like our divine uniqueness, the one of a kind extension of source energy that we are. That is encapsulated in your Uranus placement, your personal Uranus placement, whatever sign and house that's in. But this Uranus and Taurus, it's like, especially conjunct the full moon and the North Node, like it's blowing apart any physical tie in your life that is not respecting your authentic self. And when you look at the Scorpio end, that could very well trigger loss. And that potential loss is most likely why you've been hiding the authenticity in the first place. And what I want to say about that is we can't lose what is truly for us. So if somebody witnesses your authenticity, if they hear your truth and they leave and they never come back, that is a gift. You have been spared from the future with that person because they never loved you unconditionally anyway. And do you want that? You know, back on the Taurus end of our values and deciding for ourselves, like what is personally valuable, what's worth spending my time and energy on. And conditional love is nowhere on my list. It might be on yours, and that's not wrong. I'm just saying for myself, I have no time for that. I have no time for people who have rules for me to follow, that I have to pay attention to being appropriate or acting correctly in order to be worthy. That bullshit is over for me. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm, as best I can, relaxing into breathing in my moment. Who am I? Who am I? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Am I excited? Am I tired? Am I sad? Am I antsy? Am I like, who am I? Where am I in this moment right now? Just be in the moment and let it be that simple. And when you can let it be that simple, that's where, you know, this whole bubble fills up with well-being and you don't see anything other than the dominant well-being that is always present in the world, always has been, always will be. So this is a very exciting time, I do believe. Um, I think it's possible that this could be a pretty emotionally tumultuous chapter. And at the same time, I honestly think that it is more likely that more people are going to be flooding into the new earth than ever before. And that part gets me really excited. And I want to talk about these fruits of the new earth. So I that statement, that like little line came to me as I was putting together the live stream. And then because my life is like crazy right now, I didn't do any prep for the live stream until this morning. So I was like, I don't even know what I mean by that, but we figured it out. Um, so, fruits of the new earth. Couple thoughts on the new earth in general to get us started. And yeah, let's start with the general. The new earth is within us, an individual journey for each of us. Let me also preface all of this by saying these are my own personal beliefs. This is a hodgepodge of a lot of different teachers and ideas that I've heard and combined with my own personal experience, which we'll get more into as I continue here. So take what resonates and by all means leave the rest. So the new earth is within us, an individual journey for each of us. The new earth is where we are more dominantly in love than fear. So, not that you can't ever feel fear, but you wouldn't ever be swallowed by fear in the new earth. If you're swallowed by fear, that's a great sign that you're in the old earth at that time. And that I believe it's like you know, it's not a matter of at some point the old earth is going to go away and the new earth is all that's left. I think the new earth has been present for a long time, and that more and more and more people, more and more and more reside within the new earth, and that each of us have access to go there and be there anytime we want. It is 100% open for business, the new earth. Check it out. I'm going to tell you how I get there. You probably are going to have to find your own way because it sounds a little crazy. But I think that that's like how we tell is when you are marinating in love and well-being, you're in the new earth. And when you're in the density of the 3D experience of worrying about other people's business and God's business and all that, there is, we kind of go back onto the old earth side where we mix it up in the contrast and we evolve a little more, we clarify a little more specifically what it is that we want to carve out in this time space reality. And at any time, we can take the path to go back to the new earth and then stay there as long as we can until maybe an old pattern or an old trigger or something pulls us back to the old earth. And I believe that, like, basically how I see my journey is like every time I get pulled back to the old earth and then I figure out how to unravel the pattern or the trigger that just yanked me, and then I, like, find my way back to the new earth, I tell that story. That's, like, basically what my podcast is, that's basically what these live streams are, most of my videos have some effect of this. It's like, as I figure out how to unravel the patterns that keep me stuck in pain and suffering, I shout that from the rooftops as best I can to help other people unravel whatever might be keeping them stuck in the old earth, because there is no like mothership coming to collect us all and take us to the new earth and like, oh yep, it's the day, today's the day, we're all going to go. Every individual person is making that journey or not. And so if you're waiting for something to come and take you there, it does not work like that, in my opinion. And I'm going to tell you how I get there. I believe that the entrance to the new earth is deeply within our soul. So when you turn inward, and this is Scorpio, this is the beauty of Scorpio. It's like the gate to hell. It's like it's scary and it looks really awful. And so you stay out of there. You got to walk through it, because when you go into your soul, when you swim down to the bottom, it's not bottomless. I've found there is a bottom. And at the bottom of your soul, on the ocean floor, there's a tunnel that goes to the new earth, that basically you pop out in this place of, I think what it is, like the sensation of what it is when you swim far enough down into the very root of your soul, you find source energy. You find you find God. You find the divine unconditional love that is each and every one of us. And when you find that, that portal sucks you into the new earth where you can be dominant in unconditional love. Unconditional love, meaning you love no matter what. And most people, like, well, 100% of people in the old earth are practicing some form of conditional love, where there are hoops, there are requirements, there are vows that if you break your vows, then I'm leaving you in a second. It's the definition of conditional love is that I won't love you no matter what. Because if you do this or this or this or this deal breaker or this deal breaker, like it's all conditional love. And so when you find the bottom of your soul and you feel the unconditional love that source energy is, not even that source energy feels for you, you are the unconditional love that it pulls you over and you walk out. And my experience of it was like walking out of the ocean onto this beach that sparkles. And there are other beings on the beach that also sparkle. And it's beautiful there. It is. It's the new earth is a sparkling paradise. And I use that a lot, the new earth sparkles, to remind myself as I look around, I'll see something like really beautiful. Like if you go out first thing in the morning and like the dew on the grass and the sun coming across it, and it's just like sparkly, or like it's got a frost on there, and then it does that, and it's just like diamonds on the grass. And it's just like this earth is a paradise. It's a freaking paradise. How did we get so lucky as to live here? That's what I wanna know. I like, we are easily the most blessed beings in the entire universe to get to live here. So, that is my experience of, like, you gotta go in, and then you gotta go down, and you gotta get to the bottom. And what that means is that you'll have to swim past all of the little demons that keep you from doing that. When you swim down in there, you got to face all the worries and fears about, am I good enough? Am I really God? Am I really worthy? Is it really okay that I did XYZ mistake? Like, are you sure? Like, every one of those questions is waiting as you swim down into your soul. And if you can face them and sit with them and ask them, are you real? Is that true? They'll all step to the side and say, nope, keep on going. And because it's not true. That's part of the illusion. That's part of the looking out at the static and soaking up the static instead of staying grounded inside of who and what you really are at your core, the energy that brought forth your life experience. That's like the core of Taurus. And it communicates effortlessly with our body. It tells us exactly what we need, exactly when we need it. So, yeah, in the new earth, well-being is not complicated. If we feel like it is, that's probably a good sign that we're not quite getting there yet. There's still a block in our descent into our soul that like we're not fully connected. So as I was explaining a little bit, like all of this Scorpio energy, all of this like eyes wide open, system wide open to absorb the truth, the blinders off version of the truth, that's going to make it pretty uncomfortable to focus outwardly onto other people, and that it'll be that much more of an incentive to pull our energy back into ourselves, which is absolutely required because only the whole of you can make this descent and get to the bottom. If there are pieces of you that still exist with other people, if there is part of your power that resides with another person, then you don't have everything, you don't have all the tools in your toolbox that you brought with you that are what you need to face all of these layers that you're going to face. Like if you get to a certain point and it takes all of your power to come face to face with this fear that you're not good enough. If you have power scattered out and about, like you don't have enough to come face to face with that fear. So pulling your energy back into yourself and focusing back inwardly onto yourself and what do you need in this moment? What are you hungry for on any level of your being, right? Like I feel like I spent probably the first like 26, 27 years of my life hungry. And I did struggle with like binge eating, but it never touched that hunger. I also was kind of a sex addict there for a little while. Also, did not touch the hunger. Like you just couldn't, it was just a bottomless pit of you can't fill it up. And that void hurt so bad. And as I see now, that was the space where my power was supposed to be. And I had my power out here with this person. I have my power out here with this person, my parents and relationships and bosses and coworkers. And I was scattering my power everywhere, believing lots of things that I was taught to believe and that, we signed up to be conditioned when we got here. And as I've turned inward, thanks to Abraham Hicks, that was kind of my introduction to getting on my spiritual path. It got simpler and simpler and simpler and simpler when you ask yourself, what do you need? And then instead of looking around to see who can give me that, who can I get this from, you take a shortcut to let me just give it to myself. So if there's a new restaurant that I want to try, let me go there. If there's a hobby that I want to try, let me go there. Let me just cut straight to having what I want and not having to prove to anybody else that I deserve it, not having to ask anybody else's permission to let me have it, to be 100% independent, to wholeheartedly pursue whatever it is that you want to pursue. That is the freedom that Taurus energy grants us. And that's the beauty in that stubbornness. When you call your energy back into yourself, you have the energy to sink far enough into yourself to find the doorway to the new earth. The new earth feels like unconditional love, unconditional safety, unconditional well being, unconditional trust. And most of all, and I think this is the most important key that is very tangible and we can practice, unconditional acceptance of your unique divinity and goodness. You are good exactly as you are. Your unique essence, whatever it wants, whatever it's hungry for, your appetites are divinely intended. And feeding those is part of honoring your divine uniqueness, your divine individuality. That's what we're stepping into here more than anything else, is allowing the individual that you were born to be, that you fully intended. And that's definitely that's a lot to ask. Like in a sense where we live inside culture and culture has all kinds of expectations about who you should be and what does success mean and what does failure mean. These concepts are so ingrained in us that we sometimes don't even think to question, what does that even mean to be successful or to be a failure? What does that mean? And I think Taurus is a place where we define that for ourselves in terms of we define our values. And in my opinion, success is living in alignment with your individual uniqueness, your divine individuality, letting that make your decisions for you. That, in my mind, is successful. And a failure is somebody who takes marching orders from culture and tries to fit into the box and ends up regretting that in the long run. Regret is a failure. That's a failure to act in accordance with who you really are, and there's no excuse for it. There's really not. And that sounds maybe a little bit harsh, but when you turn inward, it gets a lot less complicated. It really is simple to get there. It just requires letting go of all of the old definitions of like what even makes you good or bad to begin with, because I promise you not a single person on this planet is bad. Nobody. Everybody is divinely intended. Everybody's individuality is perfect, exactly the way it is. Yours most of all. And this is a full moon where we step into that. We step into knowing that in our bones. And we walk through this world knowing that well-being is dominant. And what I'm seeing, like I have Taurus and Scorpio in the first and seventh houses. And so you should, if you want to, look at like where do you have Taurus and Scorpio, what houses? And if you don't know your birth time, it's not that important. It just kind of helps continue to ground where you'll see these things playing out. And Scorpio is my seventh house, and I have Pluto in Scorpio in the seventh house. So I have a lot of transformation and power dynamics around my relationships with other people, especially people that I partner closely with. Um, and what's going on in my world these last, like, you know, couple months to last few weeks, especially, is there are a lot of people coming that want to partner with me on things. Lots of projects coming along. And just in this last like week or so, I went from like 2 projects to 4 projects. And I feel like on the Scorpio end, like I am swimming in a sea of other people's energy. I've got teammates on this project. I've got teammates on this project. I've got this client over here. I've got this up here. And then plus owning authenticity, which is like my straw to the top of the ocean and like how I breathe. It's definitely, yeah, it's part of my self-care to be present on owning authenticity. It helps a lot to process all of this experience. But that's kinda what I'm talking about, like, there's just too much going on around you to think that you're ever gonna be able to please this one and this one and this one and to keep control of all of these things, like, you're just not ever gonna be able to have that kind of power. Like, we don't have power outside of ourselves. We only have power within ourselves to, like, choose where we're focusing, to choose what we wanna think about, what we wanna believe, what we wanna question, what we wanna start, what we wanna let go of. Like, that's where our power is. And so what I'm finding is as all of this ramps up, it is exactly that. It's like, I can't hold any of you. I can allow you to exist as you are while I hold myself fully. And that's where I sank into this morning is this Taurus full moon. Like we will get to watch as we like literally hold ourselves fully in our fullness. Like, even if you don't express your authentic individuality to somebody else, like, just knowing it and holding it yourself is still a huge piece along the way. Huge, probably, like, the first real step in allowing it to unfold in the outside world is holding it within ourselves. So, something along those lines as far as, like, what's possible on this full moon. But there is such well-being all around us. There is like an explosion coming of more and more individuals knowing that well being on a deeper and deeper level. And I am most excited for what that's going to do to further stabilize this new earth, to further add more and more and more energy to where eventually the new earth is dominant and the old earth is no longer dominant. And there are so many more people opting to, you know what, never mind. Maybe I don't solve the problems of the world. Maybe I just take really, really good care of myself and feed whatever appetites are there. And in that process, like that sounds really selfish, and it is. That's like the beauty of Taurus energy is in that selfishness. But like, hear me out here because one of the appetites that I have is for creating jobs. I absolutely love opening up economic opportunity for other people. That's one of the main reasons that I wanted to be an entrepreneur is because I love the idea of carving out work where you get to match exactly what this work is with exactly what this person is capable of. And in that combination, that person gets to shine in a new way. I am hungry for this. And so I go through the world carving out a path for myself where I get to create jobs. And so when you feed whatever selfish appetite you got going on, it reverberates through the world as like nourishing mass consciousness. Like when you nourish yourself, it automatically ripples out because as I said, like when you get down to the bottom of your soul, there's nothing besides that unconditional love that is source energy. And that's what we all are. We are all in this together. We are all so much more alike than we are different. We all get hungry. We all poop. We all sleep. Like we're human. We're in this together. We're having basically the same experience. And this is an opportunity to kind of drop the rope to, there's no war if there's no tug of war if you drop the rope. Like to just let people do whatever they are going to do, let them have whatever they want to have, and you feed yourself. You take care of you. You be responsible to you, and let everybody else hold that responsibility for themselves. And that kind of like unconditional trust, that's what I'm feeling too in this whole like, there's so much going on around me and I'll get some like anxious thoughts going about like, oh, what if they get going too fast and they make a mistake because I wasn't like paying attention or I didn't approve that step or like I'm trying to like still hang on to it. And I like there has been something like melting as far as like if that mistake happens, that's clearly what's meant to be. That's that's what's right. Like maybe that'll be a happy accident and it'll be exactly as it needs to be. There is no right or wrong. There is no good or bad. And when I'm trying to control things, been thinking about this a lot because again, like the tides are rising and I can't physically control it all. And so I've been thinking a lot about what's worth controlling. Is there anything worth controlling? And very little, very little outside of myself that I've found that is worth controlling versus just letting it be what it is. Versus inside of myself, I've found that there are a lot of things that I can control. There's a lot within my control when it comes to my personal experience. And acknowledging that, again, feels very much like this North Node in Taurus step towards standing in our own dominant well being, which is also another way of saying to be standing in our power, stand in our own power to take good care of ourselves, to decide that we deserve that no matter what anybody else is going to choose to do for themselves or with themselves, with their time. Um, this is a big step, a very big step, and I am personally really, really ready and excited to see to, like, almost watch like, the image I just got is kinda that Uranus, Moon, North Node combo in Taurus, kind of like when the plates collide in the Earth, like, you get a mountain, like, it just kind of pushes itself up naturally, and I see that as far as, like, who you really are is gonna push itself up naturally, and in that there absolutely could be other things that have to get moved out of the way, like that Scorpio end of readjusting the energy that we're putting into our relationships with other people versus the energy that we're holding within ourselves. And yeah, there's so much coming. I want to mention too, because this is kind of like tied in with this, this whole process of how I think you get to the new earth is to sink into yourself until you get to the bottom. And then down there's the doorway. The reason that we don't do that is what Dante's Inferno and The Way of Integrity by Martha Beck call the gate to hell. Like there's mean voices coming from behind the gate. They're saying hateful things. And there's a reason that we don't want to go in there. There's a reason that we would rather stay on this side if we can. And it's time to walk through the gate. It's time to face what's there and realize that it's kind of like, like a little kitten that on the wall behind it the shadow is like huge and maybe ferocious looking and then when you actually see what's there, it's like the smallest little kitten and it's just purring and it just wants snuggled. So like the fears and the hell gates and the demons that are in there, these thoughts that keep us from really sinking into who we are, the fears that we have about who we might be or the bad that we might be, like, as we work those out one at a time and we sink into ourselves, not only do we grant ourselves access to a state of full inner peace, but we also set that example for other people. We give permission to every single person that we ever share space with for them to choose themselves too, for them to let themselves off the hook for having to be appropriate or right or anything like that. We can be a proponent of choosing individuality and embracing imperfection and practicing unconditional acceptance of ourselves. And I have personally found The Way of Integrity by Martha Beck to be incredibly helpful as far as a guide, like something to walk you through that process of coming face to face with those things. Um, and so that's why we set up the free 4-part book club. And we are having the second part, Inferno, on November 5th at 11 a.m. Central Time. Maddie put the link to RSVP there. Totally free. RSVP, the link to join the Zoom will be there. We'll meet at 11 a.m. Central Time and stay on for an hour, maybe a little bit longer. And in general, just kind of chat about what it was like to go through that Inferno chapter and possibly come face to face with some things that you haven't wanted to face before. And maybe you had that experience of, it actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Maybe you had a different experience. That's what we're there for, is to hear whatever it was. I'm super excited. Um, you can either buy the book or get it on Audible, either way. And if you didn't come to part one, that's where we went through part one of the book, Dark Wood of Error. um, the recording of that is available on the channel, so you could watch that, get caught up on, get a feel for what the conversation was last time, and then come join us this time. The more the merrier. And then we'll do part 3 the first Saturday of December, and part 4, Paradise, which definitely coincides with our new Earth theme today. That one is the first Saturday of January 2023. So we'll get to root into paradise to kick off 2023. So I'm super excited for all of that. I think that is all. One other one. I wanted to mention the newsletter. So we send out a newsletter, or Maddie sends out a newsletter from the Authentica team every Monday. And on the first Monday of the month, the first newsletter of the month, there is a freebie attachment to it. So I wanted to offer, if you want to go ahead and get signed up, you'll get the newsletter this coming Monday, and then it'll be the following Monday on the 7th when the freebie for Scorpio season comes out. So I don't want you to miss that. That newsletter is really just a way to dump some love on the people who want some love to be dumped on them. So if you're into that, go ahead and sign up. Weekly dose of love right in your inbox. So with that, I am going to hang out and chat with you guys. So if you have any questions that you would like responded to, please go ahead and put those in the chat. I'm going to go back up to the top, and yeah, when we're back to the bottom, we'll wrap her up. Mm. Sovereignty is a wonderful word. Thank you, Irene, for adding into, like, what is this culmination on this full moon lunar eclipse? Like, what is this mountain coming to a peak within our experience? And I think sovereignty has a lot to do with it. And that's just such a rich word for, like, implying so much around the right to get to decide for yourself what you want. And that is a right we all have. And honestly, like, the more you're exercising that right, I think the easier and easier and easier life becomes. Um, and the easier it is to find calmness in the storm, to find the spot where, like how Dolly puts it, like the boat dock that you tie your boat to. Like, we all have a boat, and some people have more of a natural tendency to build their own dock and tie their boat to their own dock. And then other people have more of a tendency to be a little bit codependent and want to tie their boat to somebody else's dock, which is to say, to get your security from somebody else, to not provide your security to yourself, but to have a place, a port in the storm because somebody else gives it to you. And this is a time where I can see those kinds of situations exploding because we're not supposed to be finding that security in another person. It's an internal job. It's something that true security is when we are living in alignment with who we came forward to be. When we sink down into the root of our own consciousness to find that we are, in fact, source energy itself. That is security, knowing that we can't get it wrong because we are unconditional love, not we are loved unconditionally, we are unconditional love. So there is such opportunity for stepping into our sovereignty on this full moon and kind of really going forward with that mindset of, we can honor ourselves and be kind to others all at the same time. We can, factor in our own energy into every decision we ever make and still be kind to others at the same time. The two are not mutually exclusive, and I think sovereignty is just another way of saying owning our power. Hello from New Jersey. Hello. Oh, interesting. Oh, wow. Irene says Uranus conjunct my natal Mercury now. Yeah, pretty much any Taurus placements are really like downloading an upgrade to like kind of being less able to ignore what those physical appetites are. Like they're getting louder, I think. The more Uranus goes through Taurus, it takes away the static of paying attention to what other people are doing. And as we do that, we naturally can hear ourselves get louder and louder and louder. And yeah, it just makes it a lot easier, I think. Well, there's 2 parts to it, right? Like, if we're not feeding ourselves and that appetite gets more intense, it's more uncomfortable in the short term. It's, like, killing us because we're so hungry and that void is, like, pulling and wants fed, and if the appetite gets louder, if you get hungrier, like, that's really uncomfortable. But in that discomfort, eventually, there is the switch that says, "Just feed yourself. Just feed the appetite," and then it's not uncomfortable anymore, and most likely, that requires pulling those resources or that energy away from where it's going right now so that you can use it to feed yourself. So, it is such a balance between kinda like Aries, Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, similar ideas, like, there's such a balance between honoring ourselves and co-creating with others and finding harmony with others and finding, opportunities to connect with others because I guarantee that's an appetite that we all have. Like unconditional love wants company. And so within the root of each of our souls, there is a desire to connect with others. So I think there's just so much deliciousness here. Indeed, Rogue does have good energy. I dig. Pure medicine indeed. Astrology, really any kind of language or context for being able to understand the individuality that we are. Like, I feel like I have gotten so many permission slips out of my natal chart, permission slips for my boldness, permission slips for my passiveness, permission slips for my rebellion, permission slips for my conformity, permission slips for my random unpredictability, and my ability to find a rut. Like I'm a bag of contradictions and I freaking love it. And you can see it all in my natal chart. And I used to feel fucking crazy. And now I feel like I am a multifaceted, very interesting being. Very interesting. You just never know what you're gonna get. It is a revolutionary time. I've been hearing a lot of the astrologers who post videos on YouTube, like, a lot of them are saying, like, the astrology and the energy of 2023 is just as, if not more intense than what we saw in 2020, and part of that, I know, is the lunar nodes are moving out of Taurus and Scorpio into Aries and Libra, North Node into Aries, in July of 2023. So the first half of 2023, we are still very much rooting into ourselves, practicing our sovereignty, pulling as much of our energy back into ourselves as we possibly can. And then that North Node into Aries, it feels like the divine spark, like an explosion of the divine spark of like your sovereign individuality coming out to be expressed. Fire signs are extremely expressive, right? This earth energy of Taurus is about being it. And then Aries energy is about charging forward and expressing it. So there is a shift coming, like we're kind of moving it up a gear, shifting it up a notch. Um, yeah, it's a ooh, I love that. This is such a move or shift within our individual and collective evolution. Collective evolution, which is to say the amalgamation of all of the individual evolutions. So again, kind of going back to that concept of the new earth and how like there isn't one shift, there isn't like one moment where we're all going to feel this divine intervention and now we're on the new earth. It is an individual process for each person. And I would imagine like an individual process to even find the doorway to get in there. Like, I would love to hear your feedback on, what do you think of like, can you resonate with the way that I've described, like sinking into your soul deep enough to find the bottom and how that like just is a natural pull into unconditional love, which is to say the new earth? Or do you have like a completely different way of conceptualizing it? Because I would love to hear that. I think as far as like more and more and more people flooding into this new earth space or even trying to get there, there's so much more energy along this path and more than ever before, we need more people who are willing to step forward and say, not, "This is what's true for everyone. Here, let me tell you what universal truth is," but, "Let me tell you my story. Let me tell you how it works for me. Let me tell you, here are my beliefs, and here's my inner journey that I take to get over to the new earth. Here's what I think it all means." And not so that you can download that as a copy paste job into yourself, but so that you can feel that Aries energy divine spark of either you do agree or you don't. And in the not agree, in the disagreement, there is added clarity. There is new light of awareness about, okay, well, if you don't agree with my way, then what do you think? You don't have to agree with anybody. You can take every other person's opinion in the whole wide world and not match a single one of them. Probably the more we're being authentically ourselves, the chances are you're not going to match a single one of them, and just express what is for the divine well-being purpose of paying it forward. Like I said, like that's mostly what I talk about on my channel is when I get pulled back into the old earth density and then I figure out how to like unravel it and make my way back into the new earth. I try to tell that story so that other people might be able to have even one little spark of awareness around how they might be able to find their way into greater well-being themselves. So I do think that there is, yes, it's selfish to like put yourself at the center and to, plant your flag that I'm sovereign and I'm going to do whatever I want. And, if other people don't agree, they can just get over it. Like that sounds to some of us like a suicide mission. And at the same time, like, that's the doorway to the new earth, is you got to marry your authentic self. You got to have that person's back, for better or for worse. For the better or worse isn't in your authenticity. The better or worse is in how culture is reacting. And the thing is, I think a lot of us came here to bust apart culture in a meaningful way, to demonstrate a different option. It's not, are you this or are you this? I'm not even in the arena. I'm not even playing the game. I'm not on a team. I'm not on a side. I'm me. That's like, I think that's a lot of the new earth, where we're walking around as sovereign beings. That's the new earth, is standing in your own sovereignty and not ever believing for a second that another person has power over you. That's insanity. And not ever for a second believing that you have power over a single other person. That is also insanity. Our power 100% resides within ourselves, over ourselves. And the rest is part of the illusion that we came to work ourselves through. And all of that illusion is right on time, divinely timed illusion and delusion, divinely timed illusion. Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes we need a little bit of delusion to work up the dust and eventually hit critical mass where we can see clearly what we value, what's important to us. If we continue down a path, the path will continue as long as we continue. And until the consequences, the pain and suffering are big enough, we may or may not choose to pick a different path. And I think there is a great opportunity to choose the path of sovereignty in these next few months, and really, like, it sounds like going forward in 2023. Um, and not from a place of like, selfishness is inappropriate or like mean or mean spirited at all, but from a place of like the divine permission slip that you sign for people around you when you're willing to step outside of culture and demonstrate raw self, to not guard against it, to open your heart and let people look in there. It ripples, it creates an effect. And the people who receive that are more likely to open their own heart, more likely to stand in their own power. And the ripples just keep coming off of the next one and 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 the next one. We are all in this together. The collective evolution is happening because individuals are making different choices. We as individuals, it's like they say, like, you're the whole ocean in a drop. Like, you personally are the collective evolution. The healing that you are going through right now is the collective's healing. None of us are alone in our healing journey. We're all on some form of the same healing journey. The only real wound that there is being separated from who you truly are. And we all have a lot of different reasons on why that can happen, why we wind up separated. But the only journey there ever is coming back together with self. And this Taurus North Node 18-month chapter has felt exactly like that to me. It feels like coming home inside of myself in a way that the well-being is dominant. There's nothing that anybody can ever do to take that away. That boat dock exists inside my soul. That security is being generated from within my connection to my own divine spark. It's not dependent on what anybody else chooses. Everyone around me is free to have everything that they desire. It's none of my business. And that can be a risky place to be, Like, is it worth controlling, or is it worth just letting it flow? Letting everyone do whatever they're going to do, whatever they feel they need to do in that moment. That's what they'll have to do. They can choose whatever they need, and so will I. So there's some beautiful transitions happening for all of us as individuals, I got to think. Like, the temperature is rising. The discomfort of staying disconnected from yourself is rising. And I, this is maybe a harsh truth, but in the sense of all the scorpionic ability to open our eyes and hear the harsh truth, it's only going to get more painful from here to stay disconnected from who you really are. It's only going to get harder, and to the point where you won't be able to take it anymore. And the options at that point are simple. You can either flip the switch and live from your inner sovereign being of who you are at that authentic, divine extension of source energy level, to let that come forward and be as it is, or you'll make an exit and you'll come back and you'll try again. I've faced that abyss many times, including 6 years ago when I finally clicked into taking good care of myself, clicked into demonstrating and living from my place of sovereignty where I am responsible for me, nobody else, only me. My well being is 100% dependent on me. And the reason I took that responsibility was because I woke up that day and I decided I'm either going to be happy or I'm done living here. I'm done being on this planet. And at that time I had no belief in reincarnation. I was willing to throw it away, knowing at that time that that was it. That was the end. It wasn't worth having. The life that I was living before that point was no longer worth having. So either I was going to have a different one or I didn't want one. And I think that's where we're headed a little bit as a collective, as far as the life of being disconnected from who you really are is becoming less and less valuable by the second. It's becoming more and more painful. It's becoming harder and harder to sustain. And it will continue to do so for the rest of time. The only thing, the only off switch to the suffering that is to reconnect with who you really are, which is to say, to sink deeply inside of yourself to the bottom of your soul, where you are an extension of God. You are the divine in human form. You can have whatever you want. You are unconditional love. There is no right or wrong. There's only your authentic desires. And if you authentically desire something, then you are meant to have it. I mean that 100%, no caveat. And it's very 3D. And even now I can see in my mind where, like, there's a 3D pull, there's a density that pulls that says, no, but if they start killing people, then they're not good anymore, right? It doesn't work like that. It really doesn't. No matter what. No matter what. And that can be really hard for humans to wrap our mind around, because we're so indoctrinated with right and wrong from the time we're very little. But it's not real. It's 100% subjective to the person who's telling you what's right and what's wrong. It's part of the illusion of the Maya, this concept of there being those kinds of dualities. And that's where, again, when you sink far enough into it to where you're just love, I've found that it becomes less and less frequent to find reasons that are worth cutting yourself off from love. Meaning, like, when I look at someone who is unlovable, or, who lots of people don't like or whatever, like, just because they're unlovable, just because lots of people don't like them, I still get to look at them and I get to decide, do I want to stay in love, or do I want to pinch myself off when I look at this person or this event or this whatever? And it's like, I want to stay in love. I want to just let people do what they're going to do, and I want to love them anyway, no matter what. I want to take, source energy perspective and say, it's all right. It's all right on time. It's all exactly as it was always meant to be. And the only, I think about, like, the little kid, the toddler in the car seat with the fake steering wheel, thinking that he's driving and he's stressed out because he doesn't know how to drive and he's scared and he's like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And we get like that sometimes with our sense of control, thinking that we have some, and we just don't. There's just no control outside of ourselves. The only control is within ourselves, inside of our inner world, inside of how far apart is our day-to-day life and our choices compared to the source energy part of who we are. How big is this gap? That is the only place where we have power. It is the only place where we have control. Ain't nobody saving nobody. Well said. Ooh, yeah, the feminine spiral down within. And that is a great visual for this Scorpio descent to get to the bottom of your soul. And I think about it like if you've ever heard my podcast episode, Maddie, I think it's called Mermaid Life, maybe. But I talk about this. I talk about like basically swimming down under, like down through the waters that are your soul, and then getting down to this open space where you have reemerged with source energy. And it is within that space that you can be pulled into the new earth. And if you follow Abraham Hicks, I think the new earth and the vortex are very similar in terms of what are they talking about, because I think they're very similar. And so mermaid life refers to this desire to not come back to the surface, to basically live my life as a mermaid, to exist living from the root of my soul, which is to say, be a pure flowing facilitator of my authentic expression of whatever divine energy is moving through me. And I do think that it is so much of our feminine wounds, like the wounds to our emotional body, those are the levels that we'll have to meet as we sink into ourselves, sink into the waters that are us. And this is what's coming. This is the I think like the Taurus Scorpio nodes transit that we're having, plus Pluto and Capricorn has been working on this. Like there's so much energy right now. Uranus and Taurus is working on this. So much energy that is bringing the divine feminine back into balance with the divine masculine. And that is not to say bringing women and men equally, or bringing them back into balance. That is to say that within every single being is divine masculine energy and divine feminine energy. And that for any of us to do the thing where you sink down to the bottom of who you are, to pull all of your energy back into yourself, means that you would be holding in full your divine masculine energy and your divine feminine energy. You would be possessing both of them. And it is through that wholeness that you're able to sink all the way down within yourself. So, right now in culture, like within the traditionally patriarchal society that we live in, the divine masculine has been treated as more valuable, more powerful, and all of that for thousands of years at this point. And what's happening is that they're coming back into balance, not so that the feminine can be the more powerful energy, but so that we as beings can be balanced and whole within ourselves. So, and a truly equal balance between our own ability to assert ourselves and to receive, our ability to sink down into our emotions, which is to say, like, to relinquish every ounce of control. In order to sink down in, you have to come face to face with what's there. And in order to do that, you have to be open in your feminine to be able to receive what is most likely pain. Those are the things that get shoved into our unconscious mind when they're too hot to handle in the moment. It's because it hurts too bad for us to be able to process effectively. And so we reject that experience into our unconscious. And then when we come into this space of wanting to sink fully into ourselves, that means processing any of those pockets of pain that have been paused or snoozed for later. Our feminine energy is what's going to allow us to witness that wounded part of ourselves and to not tell it to suck it up, buttercup, or walk it off. It's that feminine part of our own energy that is literally going to take an arm and put it around that wounded part of yourself and sit there and cry it out, to write it out, to work through that energy, to not just brush it aside like it doesn't matter. It absolutely does matter. Processing those old hurts and healing those wounds and bringing yourself into greater wholeness and balance, it absolutely matters. And I would say there's no way to get to the new earth, which is also to say there's no way to get out of suffering if you can't balance your masculine and your feminine. I think Uta's hitting the nail on the head here. Most of what people call love is more like codependence. I 100% agree. Mm, that's a really good affirmation, Irene. I almost just said, Maddie, let's steal that. Let's put that on the spreadsheet. I call back all my power from all timelines, all people, and all places. I love that. I call back all my power from all timelines, all people, and all places. Mm, I love that. Wow. Rogue reemerged. Wow, that's all interesting. 100% need all of us. Living as a plural with DID and cannonballed in hell, December 2019. This speaks to everything. Thank you all. We're so glad you're here. Yeah. Dude, I forget my age all the time. I lost track like 6 or 7 years ago, and it's yeah, whatever. So glad you guys are here. I love the way you talk to each other. Makes me really happy. What does the stellium in 8th house mean? I mean, 8th house energy. So, Uta, maybe you're asking about like your personal birth chart. Um, but like 8th house energy is where we face, what do they call it? Sex, death, and fear. That's like the 8th house. That's what goes on there: sex, death, and fear. Sex, which is to say intimacy, which for most people, social rejection is the scariest thing that a human can face. So, intimacy would be the scariest thing that a human can face. Death, the end of our physical experience, also one of the scariest things humans can face. And at the root of the 8th house is it's fear. It's where we, through the process of, again, sinking into it, we end up transcending fear itself, recognizing fear as the illusion that it is. So if you were a person who had, even just one planet in the 8th house, let alone a whole stellium in the 8th house, that to me tells me that you were someone who signed up to want to see the full truth, even when that requires you to look at something in the face that is incredibly difficult for our human emotions. There was a willingness to feel intense human emotions and continue anyway. So there is bound to be a lot of intense physical emotions in your world when you have a lot of 8th house energy, and to figure out how to maneuver in that space, how to ride those waves of energy, how to work with the emotions as the messengers that they are. They're not an identity, they're somebody knocking on your door trying to deliver a letter. And even though it's intense, even though it may feel like they're pounding on the door or they've got like one of those like battering rams or whatever, like it's still just a message. It's still just some truth that wants to be seen. And the intensity is important because with a lower volume, like if the intensity was much less, then there is a tendency to be able to numb it, to be able to ignore it, to be able to lose yourself in your earth energy where you basically ignore your emotions. And when you have like a water mission, when you're here to learn how to work with emotional energy, or which is to say energy overall. When you're here to learn how to do that, your emotional intensity has got to be loud, because if you can turn it off, you will. Because it hurts. It's painful. It's intense. It's the Scorpio, eighth house, like the full range of what humans can feel is a lot. Like we can take a lot of pain before we pass out from shock. And that's something that we're here to work with in the eighth house part of our chart, as far as we're here to find that, there are a lot of things that can hurt us, and almost none of them can actually kill us. There's a big difference between pain and death. And facing our fears around death are something that, again, if you have eighth house placements, most likely you're here to kind of help lead the charge on our collective population transcending our fear of death. And, I kind of see that as like grounding us more in what even is life, what even is the life experience, what does the afterlife look like? Um, yeah, I think we're here, eighth house placements are here to explore, to be our pioneers into exploring what comes after death. And so that we can be less afraid of it. Like I think of Dolores Cannon. I don't know if I've ever looked at her natal chart or if we have a birth time for her, but like that was very important to her. Like very, very important was to demystify the death experience so that people wouldn't be afraid of it. And realizing that, like, basically most religions are capitalizing on people's fear of death. They're tormenting them with this idea of heaven and hell and capitalizing on their fear to get them to act in a certain way and follow a certain set of rules. And that's just not necessary. Like if you can transcend your fear of death, there is very little in this physical world that can control you or that can interfere with you exercising your own sovereignty. That's a really good question. How do you deal with not having the strength or motivation to do something that you know deep inside you're hungry for? So let's just think about it as far as like a bank account, okay? Like, yes, we're talking about like physical energy. I think like when you say strength and motivation, it sounds like physical energy resources. But let's just, for clarity's sake, put it into a money conversation. Like, it's like saying, I really, really want to sign up for this class and it's $500, but I only have $100. How do you deal with that? And it gets pretty simple at that point. You need more physical energy. You need, more than $100 in your bank account. You need to look at a couple of things, right? Like the amount of energy that you have in your physical body or the amount of energy that you have in your bank account, the amount of money that's in there, it's a factor of two things. One is how fast is it coming in? And the other half is how fast is it going out? So, where does your energy come from? That would be question number one. Is what are you doing on a regular basis to add energy to your gas tank? So, which is to say, to make deposits into the account, hoping that you'll reach $500 or whatever the strength and motivation is that you need to do the thing that you want to do. The other piece of it, though, is to look at where is it coming out? Where are you spending your energy right now? I was talking to somebody here a few weeks ago, and they were like, "I just could never do what you do. You do so much. You put out so much of like spiritual content. Like I just don't have the capacity for that. Like I could never do that what you're doing." And I was like, "You work 40 hours a week and I don't." So when you think about the energy that's there to work with, like how much do you take out? How many hours a day do you do things out in the world? Like maybe there are things you want to be doing, maybe they're not. Maybe you're spending energy on events and responsibilities and obligations and things that don't truly feed your soul. So if you don't have enough energy to do what you're really hungry to do, you kind of got to look at it like maybe you can't afford it right now, but if you would pull your energy back and stop spending, energy listening to that friend vent, or stop spend energy scrolling through TikTok. Stop spend your energy doing the things. Where is it going right now? So that's like the other half. And then how are we putting new energy in? And being able to do what you want to do is a matter of like having the resources to write the check. So if like today I feel like I want to get on live stream, I that doesn't just happen. I make a plan to make sure that I have all of Friday open. I make a plan to try to do some of the energy work all along the week so that I can be ready to be here when I get here Friday morning. So I carve out the time from my available time so that I can come here and do this because it's important to me. And that means that I'm not spending that energy doing other things. I I make that choice, but sometimes there's moments where I don't have the energy to do anything. That happens a lot where like I spent it all. And at that point, if your bank account balance is zero, you're not going to be writing any checks for a while. The only focus that we can really do is like, how do we rebuild the energy resources that are available? So, like, when I'm really, really, really depleted, or when my bank account balance is zero, or I don't have any energy left, that's where I put myself on energetic bed rest, where I just go lay in my bed for a few days until I feel like I want to get up and now I have energy to go do things. So I think that that understanding, like, where is the energy coming into the picture and where is the energy going out if you feel like you don't have enough. But then also, like, thinking about kind of divine timing wrapped around all of that, which is to say, sometimes, like, the right thing for right now is to be depleted. The right thing for right now is to lay in your bed for 3 months. Like, there are pockets of long inaction when you're really focused on the side of the equation, like, how can I build my energy reserves up? That takes a lot of rest. It takes a lot of self-care and pouring energy into your tank, which is to say, if you're laying in your bed for 3 days, that means you don't go to Vegas for the weekend with whoever. You don't go to this place over here. Like, you spend your time resting, and that builds your balance back up. So when we feel like we don't have enough energy, usually it's because we're spending it on things that don't match what we're hungry for, and we're not leaving us enough to actually feed ourselves at the end of all of that. I hope that resonates. I mean, that's kind of a general question, and that was a pretty specific answer. Um, oh, perfect. Hello from Texas. Nice. Oh boy. Uranus conjunct ascendant and north node in Taurus. Such a big turning point for all of us, so much. Mm, mm. Yes, Uta, yes. Oh, what a good note to end on. Starting to honor myself for the heroic journey I signed up for. Yes, yes. I was listening to somebody talk in our sacred circle earlier this week about how there can be a public perception around anxiety or vulnerability, that like there's a weakness in that. And they were articulating how it's actually very much the opposite. Like, when you live with high anxiety, when you live with intense fear or just emotional intensity or sensitivity in general, it takes so much more ability and capacity and energy, like, just to get through the day, just to manage that energy. Like, it is a heavy load to carry. And carrying that emotional intensity doesn't make you weak. It actually is a signal of strength. Like Scorpio energy, especially, is, I mean, it's like the most painful place in our energy outside of maybe our Chiron, wherever that's at for us uniquely. But Scorpio is where we have like our deepest, darkest, unconscious parts of ourselves that we just couldn't stand to face. It was too painful. And we got to face it. So that takes a measure of courage that somebody who doesn't live with a whole lot of fear has never really had to demonstrate courage. So there there's a lot of different ways to look at negative emotion, and I like Uta's take on it's a heroic journey to sign up to carry energy where you have no choice but to work it out. And I think a lot of us in this community can resonate with that, like with having a sensitivity that just won't quit, to where there's no way around it. You got to figure out how to work with your unique energy. Otherwise, like being here pretty much sucks. And it doesn't have to. It really doesn't. And this feels like a wonderful place to close. I thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you want to come to the book club on November 5th, where we do the Inferno section, I would love to have you there. Please sign up on the meetup page so you can get the Zoom link. Newsletter coming out every Monday. I'll be back every Friday at 10 a.m. Central Time to continue with my Friday live streams. And until next time, dear friends, thank you so, so much for being here. I hope you take such good care of yourselves, and so will I. Okay, okay, bye.